They have
Break
like
it up.
50. So it's like
Busy.
Oh, yeah.
crushing these hybrids.
You want it to look like
Ian's
work.
finally back in the office. Steven's finally back in the office.
Good for that.
We were just on overload. So. Call the regular meeting of the Village Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call.
President Schneider,
Present.
President Pro Tem Dyke, Councilmember Alec, Councilmember Colca,
Present.
Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Councilmember Glasser,
Present.
Councilmember Stuffler.
Present.
Hey, communications. Well, I'm not going to read all of this. So there's a press release from the I-69 International Trade Corridor, which was addressed at our last meeting. I believe. Hi, David. And so there's a somewhat long-winded explanation of the entire project and Almont's participation in it. And in our last meeting, I think we appointed a representative to that board, and any meetings with this party since our last council meeting?
That will be coming up next month for the public hearing to officially approve the issuance of the bonds for this project. So I thought this was a nice summation of what that project's all about since we discussed it last month.
Separate bond issued by the city of St. Clair in a grant up to $3.6 million, which was recently approved by the Michigan Strategic Fund Board. Tax will be generated for the new plant in St. Clair, for the St. Clair Industrial Park, which there was there's a new plant being built in St. Clair, city of St. Clair.
It's an expansion of the plant
Yeah.
with the accompanying infrastructure that they need.
Addressing what, electric vehicles? Is that what it was? Okay. So, wrapping it up, Magna is more than one of the world's largest suppliers in the automotive space. We are a mobility technology company with a global entrepreneurial-minded team of 161,000 employees and organizational structure designed to innovate like a startup. And our global network includes 341 manufacturing operations and 89 product development, engineering, and sales centers spanning 28 countries. So that's that. Oh. Minutes from our December 20th meeting. Going to open discussion on page 6. Number 1, county law enforcement millage funds. Item number 1, paragraph number 1, county law enforcement millage funds. Line 3, at the end of that line, it can be, I presume that word is meant to be spent rather than spend. Okay. The bottom of page 6, Councilmember glassed. So yeah, are you like in a glass cage? Or, I'm not sure. Anyway, problem with that paragraph. To speak more clearly, Wayne, I guess Manager Trent probably the word stated there after Manager Trent is being renovated for offices. That's all I have for minutes. Anybody else on the minutes? Questions, comments, corrections, deletions, whatever. Okay, general fund. Major streets, local streets, Parks and Recreation Fund, Downtown Development Authority Fund, Sewer Fund, Water Fund, Equipment Fund, Payroll Register Report. Entertain a motion. Who supported? Yep. Motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Glasser, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Objections? Unanimously approved. We have full council tonight. Now is the time for public comment for any item on our regular agenda this evening. Is there any public comment? Being none. Regular agenda item number 1, legal opinion nepotism. Did you want to make a presentation on this, Mike?
I'll speak to it very briefly. For those of you, I haven't met before, and I think that's 4 of you. I think there's only 3 that I recognize from my last appearance. My name is Mike Gilner, and I'm corporate counsel for the village. Mr. Trent contacted me, presented me with this factual situation, and asked me for an opinion on the application of the nepotism section of your charter to the fact pattern that I was given. And I've given my opinion for what it's worth. The opinion that I gave the village here is identical to the opinion I gave the village of Holly, another one of my clients, not too long ago, on the same, it's the identical charter provision there, nepotism. There is no, the key is whether or not this office is an appointive office. There is no case law which defines what that means. There are no attorney general's opinions defining that phrase or that term. And so that makes it a bit difficult, but I stand by that opinion. I think that if what was meant by nepotism was to preclude a relative of a council person from sitting on any body associated, it would be worded appointive position, which isn't the language that was used. It's a point of office. This person would be appointed, there's no doubt about it, but are they being appointed to an office? And in my opinion, a DDA board member is an altogether separate entity, separate budget. It's just, it's its own independent body and is not an office, in my opinion.
So is the definition of an office then an elected official?
Not necessarily. That is certainly one, but I think it could go to your village manager, for example, a point of office, but perhaps the clerk as well. All that being said, Tim, your charter is quite old. And if there's any question at all about what you would like that to mean, the charter can be amended. It's not the easiest process in the world. It has to go to the voters, but that's an option, because I'm no better at telling you what a point of office was meant way back when it was adopted than I think anybody else is. It was that long ago. What was meant by that? So one of my favorite sayings that I've found is true is if you ask two lawyers the same question, you're bound to get three different answers, which is to say that it's an art, it's not a science. So for what it's worth, my opinion is that this is an appointive position. It is not an appointive office.
That was my assessment as well. And I part of what I presented to council when President Pro Tem Dyke and I kind of questioned this issue somewhat is that the trend in the law was to look precisely at language, and if necessary, if there was no case law, statute, go to the dictionary and you look specifically at the wording that's used, and if you're following the wording that's used, then that's the appropriate guide to the final conclusion of what you do. And that's how I interpreted your legal opinion, that you were following the precise wording. And I agree with the conclusion, for example, the DDA board members are not village officials. They're members of a board. So that was my take on it. I don't know if not all council members agreed with either your opinion or mine. So
Last time I gave that in the Village of Holly, there was some very sharp disagreement about the same issue. And it probably has much to do with the particular person that's involved or is the subject of it. I come at it from, I don't know the persons or, the relationships necessarily. It doesn't matter for purposes of my opinion. I look at a point of office and try to define that in the context of all the guidance that's available. So.
Respected difference of opinion.
yes, yes, it was civil.
Yeah. And secondly, I'm not so concerned about the people being appointed, because the people that are being appointed, I think one of them was here last meeting, and I said I think they would serve well. My biggest concern is the charter is what we legislate or what we make our decisions off of, because it was written at some point, and at some point this was put in there as an important part of the charter. So, and one of the disagreements we had last week was, well, this is good for the village. Well, it might be good for the village, but there's a safety net in the charter for some reason that they put it in there, and I just wanted to have a discussion on that to make aware that is a concern of mine.
So if, as village attorney, if I were to appoint someone who is, I refer to it first and second degree sanguinity, whatever, it would be legal.
To that particular body. And I think, then we have to look at individual positions, of course, that may alter the conclusion. But with respect to the DDA board, that was my opinion.
Last thing I want to do is carry this out forever tonight, but I just have one other question. So what we're saying is sub-boards, planning commission, ZBA, DDA, are all positions, not a point of office. So would heads of those boards be an appoint of office, or would that be a position?
So a planning commission, they are to elect officers. And, then it becomes a little closer call. However, my opinion doesn't change, because they're selected by the planning commission. Again, they're not selected by this body, and that's really what the nepotism applies to.
Okay.
But that supports my argument that when we speak about planning commission, just to use it as an example, we speak about commissioners, members of the planning commission. You never speak about officers of the planning commission. The only time officers is ever used in that context is to speak about the chairman, for example, of the planning commission. So it's just not those words that we attach to it. It's everything, I think, that lends to my opinion that those are not appointive offices.
So just addressing all our council members, I anticipate that it's likely that the DDA is going to nominate one or two members to be on the DDA board. And that should be in the near future. Maybe by a meeting or two down the road. And at that point, if I agree, I will appoint those parties, and the nepotism clause very well could come into play. So I want council to be aware that I'm likely to appoint someone who may run into this particular provision. So if you want to have any further discussion on it now, I make an appointment and it's somebody related for second degree of sanguinity. We're going to be dealing with it at that point. So I'm just throwing it out there. If there's any further discussion, concerns about the legal opinion we've received and the concern raised by our President Pro Tem, is now be the time to do it.
I guess I have one other question in regards to that. So we have a legal opinion. We have the charter that we have followed until this point in time. So does this body need to make a legislative change based on this legal opinion going forward to make those appointments, or do we just use this legal opinion as the basis for those appointments?
There's nothing that you can do legislatively to change the charter, if that's what you mean. What this is.
No, I understand that. I guess what I'm saying is in the past, we based our decisions on nepotism from this section of the charter. Going forward, what President Snyder's saying is now we have this legal opinion that process that we followed in the past might change. What I'm saying is, does this body need to take any action not to the charter, but to this legal opinion, so there's something in place? I don't know. I'm not saying we have to. I'm just saying, is it necessary, or are we just making a change of process based on this legal opinion instead of what was said previously in the charter?
Legislatively be an ordinance, and we don't have an ordinance that addresses this. So.
No formal action would be required.
Okay.
If you simply follow the direction or my opinion moving forward as those situations arise, that's formal action in that sense.
Thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
And thanks for everybody's patience.
Anybody else want to address the issue?
The only thing I
It's
was
likely to be coming up.
Well, the only thing I was still concerned with, just with seeing what we went through with the DDA, is just, do we want to have some sort of outline of how each board should control how it's managing some of the elected people? Meaning long term. Like, I know a lot of people get elected, they don't really understand the rules and what they're voting for or understand things. And I think sometimes you can get put in a particular situation. And I feel like a lot of times you don't particularly know, again, if there was something like a treasurer and then, it came to our board and we had to dissolve that person, how would that, how would that work?
Well, there are.
Should we have provisions around certain roles with people?
Yeah, well, there are documents, legitimate official documents that would come into play. So, for example, you mentioned treasurer. The DDA has bylaws, and as I understand, it refers to matching the bylaws up with the our village charter is that the DDA board does not have authority to dismiss, discharge, throw off a DDA board member. The DDA can bring charges, and then the charges are presented to council, and then council essentially gives that person, if the person wants it, a trial to hear the charges, and it's the council that has authority to remove the person from the DDA board, which would make sense from the standpoint that they give me as president the authority to appoint the person. But by the same token, I can't just say, you're thrown off the board. You have to give the person due process, be heard, treat the issue fairly, hear all sides of the issue, and then decide, the council would decide whether the person is to be removed. So that's an example of how you handle something
Yeah.
like that.
And would that be a problem? That's where I look at it. Would that be a problem if then we had to do a vote and that person on that board, is again to have a relationship with this board? Is that an issue? I mean,
See it as far as this is
right.
concerned.
But
The next
that's what I'm
issue.
saying. Should we do something of that nature to protect that value? That's where I agree.
That's what the stipulation on the charter was put in for.
That's my
So-
concern.
So what Wayne's saying is if you've got a board member that's got a relationship on this board, if it was one of my relations, I would abstain from voting on that vote.
Right. But sometimes
there's
we run into that.
But there's no
Right.
guarantee that in the future, or. the way
Correct.
the council's back part of us, how that would go down.
Right.
That's my concern.
And we're not the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, they should excuse themselves, they don't.
And I know
Yeah,
it's hard
so-
finding volunteers. I know that's an issue, but I just look at it long term of what we should do to protect us as a body long term.
So custom and practice certainly is when there's an obvious conflict of interest, unless you don't want to go home that night because your wife might not like you've just voted her off the board. So our council has been fairly fastidious, I think, about abstaining when there's an obvious conflict of interest. Do we have anything in writing to that effect? I don't believe so, but it's fairly obvious. And I'm not sure what we would put into place. It's not in our charter. Do we pass an ordinance? Hey, stupid, it's an
Right.
obvious conflict of interest here.
I know.
And I think out of respect for one another, how we all treat one another, I think we would expect that if there's an obvious conflict of interest. And I have enough respect for the members of this council that, so let's say spouse is dealing with spouse, and so the council member, spouse council member abstains, that the other members of the council would treat the issue as it should be treated, regardless of the fact that we're dealing with a council member's spouse. How do you legislate that? An ordinance, that's our legislation, is pass an ordinance. We do set policies.
It's just, but that's my thing.
Right now, the charter legislates it.
Correct.
Pardon?
Right now, the
Right.
charter legislates it.
And I agree, everyone gets along right now, today. But
Yeah, it's true. We have passed policies in the past. Suppose we could write up a policy.
I just think each board should probably adopt the same thing. That's my thought as well. To make it,
As the bylaws for the DDA board.
to make it fair and again, to protect everything going forward.
Well, oh, God, this gets so complicated. So, the DDA is authorized by Michigan statute. And it says what it can do, what it can't do. And And a part of that statute, if I recall correctly, Mike, is that the DDA has to establish bylaws for itself. I think that's in the Michigan statute. I don't know that that applies to planning commission, park board, whatever. So, so from that standpoint, the DDA is somewhat of a different body than, let's say, the planning commission. At first, I know planning commission doesn't have bylaws and it's not required by statute, and therefore,
But we do have an ordinance that defines the planning commission, its role,
Right, that's,
and the officers and all of that.
Planning Commission by statute is supposed to have bylaws. And what some communities have done is they have adopted a conflict of interest policy that governs themselves and subordinate bodies. Now, DDA is not a subordinate body, but Planning Commission, ZBA. So you can help better define what you believe is a conflict of interest that requires, say, an abstention in a particular case. That would be appropriate if that's what you wish to do.
can you provide us with language that is typically used by other governmental entities as to, let's say, the planning commission?
Actually,
Establish a policy.
in order to receive the ARPA funding, we had to adopt a conflict of interest policy. So I can forward that to Mr. Gildner for him to review.
So, well, you're saying essentially it's already in place.
I believe so, yes.
Would that cover all the bodies, the park and planning and zoning?
No, that would be applicable only to the Planning Commission. However, when you get it, you may say this works perfect for us as well, and we adopt it for ourselves and for the subordinate bodies. So that would require some future action by you.
Okay.
that's what I think we should adopt.
I know, I'm very delicate.
Well, the park board is a truly autonomous body from the standpoint that I or council has absolutely nothing to do with the members of the park board or its officers. So there is a potential on that board. Somebody could start yelling conflict of interest. I'm surprised nobody has. But council and president has nothing to do with that whatsoever. You know, it's attending a meeting occasionally. So doesn't apply there, but you know, the park board could establish its own conflict of interest policy. So, okay. And yeah, amending the village charter is quite an endeavor. So I don't know how likely that is to happen. Has everybody spoken their piece on the issue? I guess we beat it to
I
death.
think I wasn't here last meeting, so I didn't get a chance to weigh in. I appreciate that we have this opinion. I think it's important that we have that so we can stand behind any decision that we make in the future. I think for Almont in particular, it's a small town, and we are going to have relationships, whether they're formal or informal, with many people in town. There's just not that many of us. And we have suffered from a lack of people willing to step forward and volunteer. And I just hate to eliminate people on the basis of a particular relationship when I really feel that they should be judged on the merits of their character and what they bring to the particular board they're applying to be on. And so I think we do have enough checks and balances, at least, you know, with the issue before us between DDA board and this board. If the board feels that there's too much of a conflict of interest and they don't want to have a particular person on the board, they have the ability to make that decision. You bring that to us and we agree or disagree. But I feel like that decision should really be on the character of the person and what they can bring to us and their abilities, as a village as a whole. So I think that's kind of where I am on that, is
I,
we shouldn't throw people out.
Yeah, I'm totally on the same page with you. I remember when this clause first came up in our charter and we amended it, I took the very same position. You get in a small town like ours, there's bound to be that potential for conflict. And so few people volunteer. And if you get somebody stepping forward that really has qualities that would be a benefit to the council, that's actually more important to me than the rat-tat-tat we're going back and forth with regard to the legal opinions. Not that the legal opinions
Yeah,
not
it's
important,
I
but
think it is important that we have
yeah.
it.
But yeah, judging the person by the character and what they bring to the particular board and what they can give to the community, to me, is perhaps the most significant factor. So, okay. Anybody else with any commentary on this issue? Okay, I think the horse is dead. Regular agenda item number 2, attorney rate increase. Mike.
That's not good timing in my
Are we getting a 2-for-1?
Yeah, well, not in my benefit. I probably should have waited with an opinion on a fairly divisive or controversial topic, and then to come forward. So for the majority of you who don't know me, and even the 3 of you that have seen me before, council doesn't see me very often. I don't attend your meetings on a regular basis. I come when asked, and was asked tonight to talk about these 2 issues. The primary dealings that I have are with your manager and Kim. I put in my letter what I thought was appropriate, and I explained. I called David some time ago to explain my thought process a little bit here. That what I thought was reasonable under the circumstances, what I know other lawyers are charging, was $170. And I just fell out of my chair when I realized how long it had been since I had sought an adjustment from the village in that regard. And I wasn't going to just up it to $170. That's too big of a leap to take. And so what I came up with was a tiered approach to eventually get to that point. And then I think at that point, I would be in the marketplace of what is reasonable. I leave it to the manager and the clerk, my primary points of contact, to tell you whether I'm responsive, whether they think I provide good service. I would hope they would tell you I do, but that's a risk that I run, that they tell you, no, he's not worth it. I don't think, given the amount of work that I do for the village, that this is going to have any great impact on on your budget, but it's an increase, and I'm sensitive to that. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll leave it at that.
If I can chime in with my 2 cents worth, I had seen Mike performing in court. Presents well, good lawyer, good guy. And I actually asked him whether he would be willing to be the attorney for the village of Almont, and council did end up appointing him, retaining him for that service. And these rates are very, very reasonable. I think, I have a law practice in town. It's a small law practice. We're charging $300 an hour, and I'm charging less than a lot of other attorneys. So these rates, it is true that attorneys who serve municipalities charge at a lesser rate, and I guess the going's $170. To me, it's extremely reasonable. And there are many communities where the attorney appears at every single meeting, and that runs up a big bill. And That doesn't happen here. We call on Mr. Gildner when we believe it's necessary to have outside counsel addressing legal issues for us. But my take on this is it's exceedingly reasonable.
I agree with the way it's worded here, just on the simple fact of the time and day of age. Everything's gone up. I mean, everything has gone up. I mean, this is the first time I've met you. I've heard a lot of different things and discussions when it's been asked for your opinion on that, and I have not ever, since I've been on council in the last couple of years, heard anything bad about it, so.
Members that were elected previous to Mr. Gildner coming on board. And I'd like to hear both the manager and the clerk's opinion before we make a decision. Just a quick overview. I think I know what that will be, but if you knew what we struggled with our legal representation before we brought on Mr. Gildner, it was headache city. And I'll say, since we brought him on, that I fully have confidence as one of the community leaders that we are getting quality and quick turnaround on our legal opinions, and he's one of the better, if not one of the best, governmental attorneys around, and we're lucky to have him. So, considering what we had in the past, it's night and day. It's night and day. I think Steve would agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, that's corroborated by the fact that Mike represents quite a number of other municipalities. So I assume they're all satisfied with his services. So Manager Trent, any commentary?
Yes, I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Gildner for several years now. He was the attorney for the village of Ortonville when I first started out as a village manager. And we had some interface on a couple of items during my short tenure there. And I came to respect Mr. Gildner's opinion, and we worked very well together. And I was most pleasantly surprised when I learned that he was the village attorney for Almont in coming here. And Mike has always been very responsive. We exchanged cell phone numbers, and he's just a phone call away, and is very professional. And I like his approach on how he brings things to paper, such as this nepotism opinion that he shared with you tonight. So I have good things to say about Mr. Gildner, and I appreciate the tiered approach that he proposed instead of a one lump sum increase. So thank you, Mike.
I agree with everything that you all said. He is very responsive. He's very thorough. He's a phone call away, and I trust his opinion.
Anybody else in council? Any remarks? If not, entertain a motion.
Yeah, make the motion to make the hourly rate adjustment to our village attorney as presented.
Support.
Motion made by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Steffler, to increase our village attorney's hourly rates as proposed in his December 27, 2022 letter to the village. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I
Objections? Unanimously approved. No problem, Mike. Thanks for coming this evening. Regular agenda item number 4, the Zoning Board of Appeals 2022 Activity Report. Any commentary?
It was just approved at the ZBA meeting in November to bring this to council to enter it into the record.
So that's all we need to do is a motion to enter it into the record?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have such a motion?
I'll make the motion that we enter the 2022 Almont Village Zoning Board of Appeals Activity Report into the record.
support that.
Are you, Jackie? Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Okay. All right, motion by Councilmember Steffler, supported by Councilmember Konka, to enter into record the Zoning Board of Appeals Activity Report. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimously approved. Regular agenda item number 4, Resolution 23-01-01, Performance Resolution for Municipalities. We have to do this every year, right?
Correct.
To deal with any village activities within the right-of-way.
Correct.
MDOT's right-of-way.
Correct.
So, and nothing has really changed from previous resolutions other than it's for this year.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 23-01-01 is presented.
Or
Motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember it's Feldman. Is there further discussion? Roll call?
Alec?
Aye.
Kalka?
Aye.
Dyke? Feldman?
Aye.
Glasser?
Aye.
Steffler? Aye. Schneider?
Aye. Resolution 23-01-01 is unanimously approved. Now is the time on our agenda for public comment on any non-agenda item. Is there any public comment for non-agenda item? Being none. No open discussion, closed session, not applicable, not applicable. Now is the time for council manager comment. Manager Trent, anything you'd like to present to council?
Quick items. At our last meeting, I mentioned that Congress was queued up to pass the $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill, and that we had been advised that our community initiative project of just under $4 million was part of that package. And Congress did approve that bill before they departed for Christmas break. And I received a follow-up email from Danielle Bratz, who's a legislative assistant from the DC office for Congresswoman McLean, to let us know officially that that was approved. And we were on page 13 of an 80-page supplement that had all of the Congress people's pet projects that they got buried in the 1.7 trillion. So I also learned, courtesy of working with one of our new engineering firms, F&V, that the city of Croswell had a project approved a year ago, and they're still waiting for paperwork to come from Uncle Sam so that they can begin that work. So as she indicated in her email, it might be a few months before we hear anything. That's probably the reality. It might be a few months. So whereas when they issued the community funded initiative application and made it sound like, hey, we're going to get this approved this year and you have to have it done by the end of the fiscal year, that's not true. It's kind of a work in progress kind of thing. So I would expect that we'll probably be planning for the implementation of the East and West St. Clair project in 2024 and not 23. So be patient, but at least we've got the money secured and gives us time to plan for engineering, design, and all that good stuff.
Working, getting it lined up, David.
Well, thank you.
Much appreciated and very helpful to the village.
Just a couple other quick follow-up items from my village manager report from our last meeting. The above-ground storage tank project, phase 1, was completed. I had mentioned to you that the Larson Company had basically figured out a strategy to do that in 2 phases. And it was great timing because when they completed phase 1 of relocating the above-ground storage tank, we actually had a small power outage that very day, and everything worked just fine. So the underground storage tank will be removed with the appropriate soil borings, et cetera, at some point going down the road. But that's something that, again, because of their strategy, that's a separate project that didn't impact the operation of the plant. So kudos to them for helping us with that project. We had some discussion at our last meeting about the council desiring to have some communication with Superintendent Kalmar about an additional SRO. And because of school break and our vacation last week as well, we're going to endeavor to try to set up that meeting next week when Chief Martin is back from his vacation this week. So it's something that is on our radar, and we'll broach that topic with him next week. And I'm anticipating, based on what they told us in the official application for the CEDAM Fellow Host Community position that we applied for, that tomorrow is supposed to be announcement day. So hopefully we'll find out tomorrow if we are the host community in Region 6 for that fellow position. And if we are successful, I'll shoot out an email and let you know that. That's all I have.
Just a reminder that we will be having a public hearing before our meeting on January 17th at 7:25 for the Elmont 5-year Parks and Rec Plan.
Sorry?
Has that been sent out and I missed it to council
It was
members?
published twice in the Tri-City Times. It's been on our website, on the township's website, and out front. Before Christmas. It was, yeah.
But
it
we
was-
didn't get an email copy of it.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I really, if I can miss it, post it on our website and in the Tri-City Times. How many residents know that this has been published? If we can get on our Facebook page.
I believe we
Park
put it on the
Facebook
Facebook page as well, but I'll do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's our intent to be transparent.
Sure.
If I can miss it, a lot of people can.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Who reads the newspaper these days? It's not on TikTok or whatever.
It's not front page news, right? It's like,
Right. Yeah.
we're not walking by here, we're looking at our website. It's easy to miss. And it's one that I feel like a lot of residents would like to know about.
Not too much. I only had one comment. After we had that meeting about the SRO, did get some feedback from some of the students. They were actually made a comment about if particularly they were looking for a male officer if possible, just because with Officer Amanda can't go the places that obviously a male officer could go, and they said they see that as kind of a lack. So they kind of wanted me to pass that along to you in the comments that would be something they would see some value in. And that's all I had.
Set.
Yes, sorry, I don't.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about the parcel that's on Van Dyke. Where we're at with everything? Because I understood that we were getting the grant.
Awarded the grant, we have to consummate a sale with the Sherwoods. And this gentleman is going to be chatting with me about that in our after meeting. After we
Okay.
adjourn. And so that's where we stand on that.
Okay, more to come then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
This may sound like a silly question. I would have thought it would be a silly question, but I've actually seen somewhere on the internet where certain communities are actually banning TikTok because apparently they have some interaction with it. And of course, our military is barred from using it. And we haven't any representatives from China in our audience, but there is that concern, and it's not that secure. So do we have any participation whatsoever? Okay,
Not at all.
yeah, okay. I didn't think so, but
Just read the terms and conditions that you agree to. And basically what you agree to is that any device that you connect that's connected to a network they're allowed to monitor the entire network, not just your device. Anything that happens on that network. You agree to that, even if you don't have the authority to agree to it.
Yeah, well, I stay off of social media, but I've just recently seen something else on the internet to the effect that, well, don't put Alexa in your bedroom because it can hear you. In fact, maybe, and if you have one with a screen, it can see you. Great.
But TikTok is one of, it's known to be one of the most intrusive agreements that when you say agree, which you're not going to read the 40-some pages, or most kids aren't going to read that anyways.
Oh, of course not. And I don't know, are there any members of the population below 25 that aren't on TikTok? I'm glued to my phone. Yeah. Phones own people. I mean, if you watch crowds, whatever. Yeah, it's incredible. Anyway, let's all look forward to a good year in 2023, maybe even better than 2022. And we're adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.